Hello, and welcome to another episode of Unbottleneck, the podcast where we solve common digital marketing problems. And one of the areas that we don't talk enough about is local search or multi-location or franchise SEO. So today with us is Krystal Taing, and we'll be talking about local digital marketing strategies for 2021. Welcome, Krystal. I'm going to introduce you here in a second, but thanks for coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.
So you're a strategic partner solutions engineer at Uberall, which is a multi-location data management platform among a million other things. You're based in San Diego, and you craft solutions for businesses to easily manage search, discovery, engagement, and conversation across mobile, voice, and desktop. I can't wait to talk about voice, by the way,
Yes.
at Uberall. You're also a Google My Business Gold product expert. I'm going to definitely ask you about that one, and a faculty member at Local U, which I've been to multiple times. If you haven't been to a Local U event, I'm sure they're virtual still, but I definitely recommend it. They're very, very cool, very informative. You spent the last decade working in SEO and e-commerce with a focus in local since 2014. And before joining Uberall, Krystal led the local product strategy for Rio SEO. Her experience devising local strategy aids brands and agencies in solving their most persistent marketing challenges. So, Krystal, really quick, what is it? What does it mean to be a Google My Business Gold product expert?
So there is a group of folks who have worked with Google My Business for a really long time. And essentially, our focus is on helping users on the Google My Business forum. So Google My Business has a support triage program.
Okay.
And oftentimes, if you are looking for like strategy and suggestions, as opposed to just getting a problem solved, Google's going to forward you to the forum, which is just a bunch of volunteers telling others the successes or challenges they've overcome based on their own experience. So
Is
I've
that
been
what
doing
they
that.
complain to? Do they complain on the forum about someone spamming? And do you have any sort of influence over the GMB folks to try to remove spammy results?
Yeah, so lots of complaints. So anytime you work with someone that's a GMB product expert,
Mhm.
always, I say thank them because we get a lot of people like yelling at us, thinking we're Google, thinking we can control it,
Mm.
which we
And you're
can't.
volunteering.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can't control it, but we can, again, provide experience and guidance. This is what we've seen 100 times before. This is going to be your best path to solution following these steps. And if you hit a roadblock, come back and I'll talk to you about next steps. But this is where I need you to start. So,
Got it.
that's typically what we're doing, is just saying, based on our experience, this is what we do. And we also, work closely with the Google My Business product team. So if there's something that's not working or something they should be considering that maybe at their purview they can't see, we're the ones that are really close to the users. We
Yeah.
are also the users, so we're able to kind of share that feedback with the GMB
So
team.
you
And
have a red line to basically call somebody at Google directly.
not necessarily, but they listen to our feedback. We do meet with them on
Okay.
a regular cadence. We do have, chats and conversations, and then on-sites or virtual
Sure.
on-sites in the last year, where they are actively seeking our feedback and guidance. They do value the product experts, and they understand that, we're on the front lines.
Has that product team gone down a little bit, at Google since the pandemic? Or I kind of get an impression based on some of the shifting results that I've seen over the last, several months, that maybe there's just not as many folks there to answer the replies of people who are complaining about, spammy listings and so forth. Or do you know?
So, and all of this is just my assumption based on what I've seen.
Yeah.
I don't think the team has gone down. I think there's been a lot of readjustments. So,
Oh, I
in
see.
the last year, in addition to like the increase in spam, there's been
Hmm.
a huge increase in features that are available to businesses on
Right.
GMB. And so my assumption is that they pulled a lot of those resources to work on some of these newer features, all the new
That makes sense.
attributes and the functionality, and things that would have moved a lot slower if there wasn't a global pandemic. And so I think that was probably one of the issues. And then obviously recently, they have a huge base of customer service reps in India, and that's been unfortunately impacting
Oh, yeah,
with
especially
what's going on
recently.
there. Yeah, there's been a
Yes.
lot of slowdown in terms of response rate there. So
Well, thanks
um,
for sharing. I'm sure a lot of folks
yeah,
are frustrated and confused and having this feeling like what's going on over there? And it's not that
yeah,
there's a lack of resources, it's that they've moved around to try to support new features, and a lot of the support teams are in places where, they're impacted by the pandemic.
yeah,
That makes
yeah.
sense. That makes a lot of sense. I'm surprised we never really hung out at one of those local U's. I think on the next one we're gonna have to get together and get some coffee or something, for
Definitely,
sure.
yes.
Well, let's jump into some questions. I have a few lined up. I actually have six specific questions and a little lightning round of my favorite Q&A. So, recovering from a global pandemic is, of course, on the minds and hearts of so many people worldwide right now. As we emerge beyond this, can you share what you're seeing as the local digital marketing and SEO landscape post COVID-19?
Yeah, so I think right now, in some parts of the world, obviously not every part of the world is in recovery mode,
Mhm.
but where there's economies that are looking into recovery, what I see is a focus on what worked and was successful in the last year.
Right.
I think we talked about businesses that moved quicker than they typically would have to launch some of these like virtual services and
Off premises delivery, takeout. Yep.
yeah, all of those types of things that normally take like 6 months to get approval on, where they're just like, we have to do this now. We have no other option. Kind of refining those. Like, where
Right.
did we move quickly that we can go back and say, is this the right way? Are there adjustments we need to make to that? Which of these maybe aren't working or are not ready for market that we need to
Mhm.
rethink? What are the responses to these features and services? So I think a lot
Sure.
of it was last year fast forwarded a lot of things from a digital perspective. And this is the moment, especially right before holiday, we start thinking about holiday because we're like, oh, we're already halfway through the year. This is
Yeah.
crazy. Before we dive into holiday season, like, are your curbside pickups ready for prime time again this year? And
Mhm.
not as sloppily as maybe they were rolled out last year. Like, people are going to expect to maintain these services. So I think that's kind of the mode we're in right now before we approach holiday season is refining everything we did in the last year, just pausing for a second.
Sure, learning from some of the things that happened. I'm noticing also a bit of a trend in a demand for product. There's product inventory issues because a lot of the suppliers have changed or closed or reduced, what's available. So restaurant chains in general, some of them are struggling with product inventory issues, and then second is with jobs. I
Yeah.
noticed, the especially in restaurant where people don't really want to be handling food, and dealing with a lot of people, during a crisis like that where they're more susceptible to getting sick. So um, when they do bring people in, they generally don't stay more than a few days right now. So they're having to adjust, and I think the biggest learning for a lot of them is that they got to pay them a little bit more, right, than they did previously to motivate them to come back in if they worked there before, and just finding people who want to find a job right now.
Yeah.
So, one of our clients, this big virtual hiring event, to try to bring in new employees and to try to, build awareness that there's jobs open. Come on in and come interview. And so we're creating job pages and doing things to try to address from a search standpoint what people are looking for. And right now, it's hopefully going to start being more jobs, and it's going to be, if anything, maybe more suppliers, for these big organizations that are trying to figure out where to go to fill all the demand for all the people that are now out of their house looking for food when their supply has been down to a fraction during, the year of hell we went through.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
would
so
just add
go
there
ahead.
a great point. If you're
Yeah,
not doing Google Posts for them for their job events, I would definitely suggest exploring that. I saw it, when Google Posts came out a couple years ago, some
yep.
large national brands, using those for employees, but that would be a really great, kind of way to add that digital
And it
footprint.
takes just a couple minutes to go in there and
Yeah.
do it too.
Yeah.
By the way, and it's kind of off topic, but at Uberall, is there a way to bulk post through the platform for multi-location brands? I never
Yeah.
really asked that question to Greg.
We actually have all types of Google posts. You can not only post across your locations or you can segment it. So if you've got different posts that are, applicable to specific
Mhm.
regions, any type of filtering you need, you can post it within there. You can create templates, and then you can also
Right,
schedule them out. So if you're like, hey, I want to schedule my next month's worth of posts and only dedicate an hour to that and not, an hour every week, we have
right.
that functionality as well. Understanding
So
that,
Google opened it up
yeah.
so that you could do that? Or are you guys using some crazy iMacro system or something to do that?
No, it actually is all available via Google. So
Okay, good.
when COVID happened, Google basically said, chains, go ahead and use the API for posts.
Oh, cool.
But they did say it was temporary. Though my understanding right now is I don't think Google has any end date to turn posts off for chains.
Right,
And I think they've been able to, when I've asked them, hey, like, do you think this is going to end? Should, agencies and SaaS companies like not invest a lot of resources in this? I think they
right.
actually saw pretty positive benefits from posts. Not a lot of spam, which I think was kind of a concern.
Mhm.
So I would definitely, if you're a multi-location brand, definitely leverage the posts. Definitely add those into your content calendar. I don't have a sense that they're going away anytime soon.
That's great news.
Yes.
So, next question is how would you define the online journey versus the offline journey for businesses and brands? What should business owners know about how these two work together?
So I would first start by saying they are so intertwined, and the last year has just made that explode.
Mhm.
I think you mentioned too that so much of search starts from a product aspect,
Mhm.
where I think traditionally we think someone has a store or a restaurant or something in mind. Whereas now a lot of the searches is like, I need this specific product.
Right.
And so a lot of that research is taking place online, but maybe they're not willing to wait to get it for a couple days, or it's something they need quickly or they've been trying to find. So understanding that if you have your information present online, that they need to know what are the in-store, availabilities. What
Yeah,
can they
pick
do?
up in
Can they pick
store.
it up
I
and
love it.
not? Yeah, exactly, exactly. So I almost feel like they don't operate separately anymore at all. You can't just purely be, online. You've got to have some type of physical presence, whether it's just a person, or something like that. And
Mhm.
if you're purely brick and mortar, you cannot, absolutely not, ignore digital. You've got to have some type of presence. I think,
Right.
like if you think restaurants, for example,
Yeah.
there's been plenty of restaurants, I think, for a long time that were able to succeed just by word of mouth. Maybe they were just so good, or they've got a Michelin star or something, and they wouldn't even have claimed their Google My Business listing. I feel like that is a non-negotiable now, given all the desire for people to need to know so much information about your business
Mhm.
before they visit. Like, what are your health and safety protocols? Like,
Right.
are you going to have outdoor dining and those types of features that just not having a digital presence would not allow you to show?
It's a lot more thought into when we go out than what we had before the pandemic for
Yeah,
sure. My
definitely.
favorite was BJ's Pizza before the pandemic even started. If I was doing a search for a type of food I liked and BJ's came up, I go to the site, it guide me over to the mobile app, right? And from the mobile app, I could actually get my place in line. I could pre-order some of the food that I'm going to eat when I get there. So when I sit down and they say, "What would you like?" You can say, "I actually already ordered the app online," and they're looking like, "Yeah, you sure did. I'll go get it for you."
Yeah.
And you could even pay. So what I really enjoyed about that whole journey was that um, I kind of kept the entire experience, through the app and the attribution. I'm sure that BJ's got from what I searched to what I spent. Um, is something that most restaurant franchises and a lot of businesses that are actual local businesses don't do. And there's so much data that you can extrapolate from that, because then you can see what was it that they searched for that caused them to come in and actually make a purchase. The attribution generally stops the moment the person finds the phone number and or gets directions. Then they're done. Once they get to the location, their phone goes back in their bag or in their pocket, and they're finished. We don't know what else they did after the fact. And I think that was a really neat way to kind of marry the online and offline, giving them attribution but also giving me, the consumer, the ability to control my experience through the mobile app or through the website, if that was an option. I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, I love that. And if you think about the operational challenges restaurants have been able to, or have been having, with hiring staff, this could potentially help in that process. Digitizing more of that in-person experience could,
Mhm.
cut down on your need to have, multiple wait staff.
And all the data you're gonna get from it is
Yes, so
insane.
much.
Yeah. Next one, you've mentioned the part of digital marketing, that part that digital marketing agencies play in aiding local businesses through that online offline journey. Can you walk us through how you see the role of agencies in supporting that journey and how they can improve those efforts?
Yeah. So I always kind of think about it as if you're, an agency partner of, a brand or a business,
Mhm.
that you can make yourself look like an extension of that team. What are the things you can do for them that they're not already thinking about? So, put it in the simplest of terms, like maybe there's a new algorithm that came out on Google, or no, maybe there's a new search
Next
feature,
month. Yep,
or
it's coming.
yeah, or something that they should be preparing for, but they're
Right.
over here trying to address hiring challenges, or they're trying to address this new curbside pickup feature that they're doing, and how to get this deployed on pages. How can
Mhm.
you supplement what they're doing and saying, hey, we also need to pay attention to these features? So becoming an expert at their business from an industry perspective, I feel like, can really take you a long way in terms of your relationship with that client.
I love that. Yeah, and then if you're coordinating with every member of the team
Yeah.
and they're communicating with you and what they're doing, you can also prevent them from sort of doing something that could hurt your search efforts. Hey, we're doing this big new thing. Well, thanks for letting us know. You just stripped out 50% of our SEO efforts from last year, right?
Yeah.
So there's definitely that value in having those relationships and communicating so that all the teams are on the same page and aligned so that you can help them when there's a new opportunity with the business, and you can help prevent any sort of loss of ranking by them just making business decisions without talking to the SEO extension, as you called it, right?
Yeah. And bringing the teams together. I love that you point that out. Like, I
Mhm.
think that shows the power of what an agency can do, is
Right.
when you would tell them, hey, make sure you check with your development team or your engineering team before they do something like this.
Hmm.
And they probably don't have a relationship like that. I think agencies have the ability to build that bridge.
Absolutely, I love it. So what tools do you live and breathe by in that online and offline journey? And I know the big one, Uberall, right?
Yeah.
But what other tools do you swear by?
So I definitely, obviously, at Uberall, we're pulling in data points from a lot of different, places. Primarily Google My Business, because that's where 90 to 95% of users are living. I personally do a lot in Excel. So if I'm, exporting data from maybe Google Search Console or Google My Business, and then just looking at it in Excel, there's something to me that just like looks so pretty about a lot of data in like a very simplified format. But also I find it helpful to like visualize it in Tableau. So if I'm going to then go
Mm.
communicate that to a prospect or a customer,
Right.
obviously making it simple to understand. Someone looking at, a million data points may not find it as interesting as I do. So a
Sure.
lot of the times we might add, visualizations either in Google Data Studio or
Mhm.
Tableau. And that's typically where I'm doing a lot of that visualizations, and delivering it to clients.
I think we've both seen enough Excel that we have grid lines like embedded, like tattooed on our eyeballs.
Yeah.
So, so many late nights in Excel trying to figure things out, and
I just
I've
can't get
gone
away from
through,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
gone through so many keywords in my 22 years of search. I remember with one of our restaurant chains, we found 185,000 search term opportunities that I had to sift through and sort and move to tabs, and it was this 6 month journey of trying to get it all done in little bite sized chunks. And by the time I was done, I said, I'm never looking at Excel again. So, one of my favorite topics, of course, is local search. Right, we always talk about the importance of data management, the importance of having a high performing and very helpful, delightful local page for each location. The importance of making sure the data for that business is available on other websites for Google and being defined and sort of calculated into their popularity scores and reputation and getting a nice velocity of good positive reviews coming in and responding to negative reviews. Those four areas seem to be pretty mission critical when it comes to an SEO standpoint. The first part of that, of course, is the listing management piece. And I know there's a lot of different platforms and options, and even manually, if you've got all the time in the world to manage all of your listings. What's your approach when it comes to listing management, and any obvious or less obvious directories that you see business owners skipping all too often that are important, like your Yelps of the world? And if you had to give business owners the task of focusing on only a few directory and listings, what would they be?
So I would say, our approach to listings is kind of one of those that's like, this is the core to your business. You have to get it right. Nothing else will succeed without it. And it's
Right.
not always the prettiest, it's not always the most exciting, but it's a non negotiable. So, what we take as the core of our business at Uberall is we have this multi step data cleansing process where every piece of data that comes in goes through a multi-step automated as well as manual process. So we're making sure that it's formatted before it goes to Google, before it goes to Bing, before it goes to Apple, before it goes to every site. And we're
And they
taking
all
all of,
have their own special requirements and
yeah,
fields, and yep.
yeah. So we've got a team that's doing that. And then we also have a team that is manually placing every map pin on the rooftop of that location. And so what we find is by starting the process with really clean and optimized data, there
Mhm.
is a speed to ingestion by Google.
Interesting.
There's a speed to ingestion by Apple, and that we're getting it there quicker. So I think first, ultimately starting with really good quality data
Okay.
that's formatted to each of their requirements. Yellow Pages wants something different than Yelp
Yeah.
wants. So that's, kind of core to our business model at Uberall. And then from there, I think, making sure that you have your core bases covered. These are Google, of course, Apple, which I think probably plays more into consumers than a lot of the other sites. Like, I think probably Apple Maps could be more important than Bing, say. Maybe
Mm.
not from a ranking standpoint because it can't be scraped and measured the exact same
But from
way.
not having a ticked off user who went to the wrong place from their iPhone map. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but definitely Apple should be a core one. Yelp for anyone in the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're a corner store, Yelp's not as important, but someone that's, service is core to your business. I think Yelp is there. TripAdvisor if you're a restaurant or a hotel.
Sure.
And then, from there, I think there's another set of supplemental sites, say maybe 5 to 10,
Hmm.
that Google is using as trust factors. So they're going to go and evaluate and make sure your data that you're providing
The
matches your
aggregators.
website. Yeah, they're matching
Mhm.
what's the aggregators have in their system, what the places like Yellow Pages and some of these kind of, we call them longer tail citation sites. It's
Sure.
still important to be present on. You don't have to have every single element filled out. They're really just looking at kind of your core location data, so to have your bases covered.
Sure.
And outside of there, definitely go niche to your industry. So if you're a plumber, make sure you're on Angie's list. And if you're a lawyer, you're going to have different sites that are
Lawyers.com and
relevant. Yeah.
Avvo. Yeah.
And dentists and doctors and healthcare is a huge industry where you've got unique niches. But I think that's really, it's like, as long as you're where your customers are, that's typically where Google is going to be, kind of scoring you based on.
Sure. How important are the aggregators these days? I mean, back in the day, like you'd mentioned, the data accuracy is sort of like the nucleus of a really successful local search campaign, right? And the aggregators were where a lot of these directories were pulling their information from, and then at some point, some of them turned into their own, like Foursquare turned into their own aggregator. What's the importance of some of these aggregators these days, and what are the big ones that we should be paying attention to?
So I think when it comes to the aggregators, you either have, if you're not submitting to them directly, I think you can submit to the sites that they're going to be pulling data from. Because
Okay.
the aggregators, they thrive on information. So if they're
Mhm.
not getting from you as a business or as an agency, they're going to get it from somewhere else.
Right.
And again, these are similar places. Like they're either going to pull it from Google or Bing or Apple or Yelp or these other lists.
Mhm.
So I think you've kind of got a couple options. If you're not going to the aggregators directly, you can go to the other sites that they're feeding from. I think the
Noted.
challenge with the aggregators, though, and having an aggregators only approach is the ability to customize your information is limited. So you're submitting your data to say like an info group, and info group doesn't allow you to kind of categorize it uniquely. So if you want to really promote your profile as a service area business. You're going to have limitations as
Sure.
opposed to cutting out info group and just going directly to, 5 or 10 long tail sites that do support service area businesses, but it's the limitations of info group that
Yeah,
do not support
field
it.
limits and other things, I'm sure. I'm sure there's a lot more that you could do when you go directly into those. Let me see if I got it right. So we talked about the aggregators. So for businesses paying attention to where they need to submit their business, the aggregators, and I think I know a couple of them. Foursquare, which I think merged with Factual,
Yeah, they
Info
acquired
Group, which is
Factual.
what Data Axle now, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
And then there's
Localese is
also
the other one.
Neustar,
Yeah.
right?
New Star Localese.
Is there any other one that's kind of popped up or coming up that we should keep our eyes open for?
So I think the one that's moving in the right direction is definitely going to be the Foursquare Factual. Because
Okay.
I think before they acquired Factual, you know, Factual is kind of just there. They weren't really delivering anything of
Yeah.
quality or with any, value. But now that Foursquare's acquired them, I think Foursquare has the right sense. They're giving your data to a lot of apps, which is huge. They are still
Interesting.
leveraging the Factual network. But I
All right.
think in terms of like niche directories and sites, I think Localese has more of those. It's just the challenge is measurement when you're leveraging the aggregators. So they're not really giving you proof of publish on each of these end sites. And then also
We've
control.
UTM them before, by the way. We put a UTM code on the URLs that we submitted in the past as a test, and a lot of the directories just don't
Strip
drive the
them.
traffic. You're still going to see it from Yelp and from Google My Business, and maybe one or two other like niche directories, but for the
Yeah.
most part, there's not a lot of referral traffic that you're going to get. So you're right. There's no way for you to know, where Google's finding that information because you're not likely getting a lot of traffic from it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
And I think control over how your listing displays on those sites. So, ultimately, I think if you can control your data, then, you can use it. I think the aggregators are a fine option. If you've got a lot of locations and you don't have the ability to submit directly, it's,
Mhm.
kind of a decent option to get you a lot
Bare
of,
minimum.
yeah, a
Bare
lot of
minimum,
breath
get in
across
the
the web.
aggregators.
Yeah,
Got it. So we have the aggregators, we have navigation engines, right? Your map systems. You mentioned Apple Maps. You've got
yeah,
your search engines, which are Google My Business and Bing Local, and who knows what's going on with Yahoo. That's a whole nother
yes.
podcast. Then you've got your social local directories, your Yelp and your Facebook, and what was Foursquare, which is kind of still social local and aggregator now, I suppose. And then you've got your niche directories for your industry,
Definitely.
and probably your local directories, which are those that are actually in your city.
Yeah,
I'm in La Mirada, so it'd be like lamirada.org/businesses or whatever, Chamber of Commerce, whatever your actual regional, city sites are where you can list your business could be something that search engines find and add to your sort of your trust in terms of how they find your data. So those are really, I think, kind of the core of for a business to be paying attention to those
yeah.
aggregators, those nav engines, those. And it sounds like platforms like Uber kind of handle all of that in one swoop, so that you don't have to submit to every single one of those destinations. It's all part of the network, and works as sort of a single source of truth for the data, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's what it takes all of the guesswork out of that. You give us one piece of location data, one entire location, and we do the rest from there. And we say, this is where you're published, this is where your information's showing, this is how many clicks you're getting from these sites that nobody knows about. But yeah, that's
So if you're a
essentially what a
local
platform
SEO
does.
specialist and you want your life back, use a
Yes,
platform.
there you go.
uh, Last one on my list. Let's talk about local best practices for businesses and the few critical areas that we know, especially over the last couple of years, that become more important: reviews, reputation, and messaging. So let's talk about that. And I don't know, I haven't had a chance to really play with Uberall, but is reviews and reputation management part of the platform, where if a business wanted to at scale sort of get a bird's eye view of what the overall rating is across different websites, and how important is that for local search?
Yeah, we actually cover all three of those: reviews, reputation, and messaging. So, in terms of reviews, our platform is pulling in and giving users the ability to respond to reviews across like 16 sites. albeit, majority of those are coming from Google, Yelp, TripAdvisor, and Facebook. But yes, definitely we allow the ability to pull in reviews. And that is something that we actually see a ton of engagement in the platform for.
Right.
Whether it's a multi-location brand or an agency that is managing SMBs, I think everyone is, if they haven't before, starting to understand the importance of those. And then from a reputation standpoint, giving businesses and agencies the ability to see like what is happening with my locations. Is it
Right.
trending positive? Is it trending negative? Is there a region within the country that is having a challenge or having success? And if
Mhm.
so, why? What does that look like? So really giving the ability, like you said, to see top
Bird's
level,
eye
but
view.
also be
Mhm.
be granular if you want to. There's a lot of kind of customization functionality, and then the
Right.
tools obviously to manage it, to respond, to share it, all of those things that, a business would need to do with their reviews.
So what's great about Uberall and similar platforms is that you don't have to keep logging in to Google My Business, to Yelp, to Facebook to see all of those different reviews. You can see them in aggregate within the platform, and you manage and respond and interact with those reviews in one place as opposed to having to go to all those different places to submit. I think that definitely takes a lot of time and stress off of the marketer. And I think one of the reasons why it's important beyond just that moment where you're an auto repair franchise and you look at your Google My Business reviews for the first time and see people yelling and screaming at you, and you're like, "This from like a year and a half ago. I didn't even know people were mad here,"
Yeah.
and I've seen that actually happen, and it's really sad. And you're like, "I wonder why you're not getting any traffic." So we always think about those three main components for organic search, right? Is do we have a page of content that best solves what the person's actually searching for? Are we getting visibility off the website that Google and other search engines are recognizing as trust and authority signals that pass votes to our pages? And are we standing out in the search results to get clicked on more often than our competitors and keeping them there because we provide that delightful experience? And I think the reviews from a local standpoint allow us to have stars underneath our listing, and nobody clicks on 1 or 2 star websites, right, or
Yeah.
businesses. They want to go to a business that they trust. Or even if you do have 5 stars, if you only have 2 reviews and your competitors are in the 30s or 40s, it just doesn't make you stand out as well. So I think just paying attention to that to boost the search appearance, to influence user search behavior, could have a long-term impact, I think, on keyword rankings, at least when we think about Google Maps, since I know our pages don't always have star snippets in the search results, right?
Yes. Yeah. They took those away.
Yeah, not from all, but from enough that it definitely, I think it definitely made an impact on CTR. That's
Yeah.
something I'll have to do after the podcast, is go see who pulled some data from after that last update in terms of how the impact to CTR was.
Yeah.
That's going to
Yeah.
be really interesting, especially lawyers, right? Those are the
Gosh.
ones
Yeah.
that I think got hit the most. So I have some lightning round questions for you. You ready?
Yes, I am.
Number one is, who should we be following in local or multi-location search? Like what influencers, who influences you? Who do you follow on social media when you want to look up to somebody who's really good at local search?
So I would definitely say like Cindy Crum is one of
Okay.
like the smartest people I know. She's all about like mobile, and understanding what you look like from a mobile perspective for
Okay.
multi-location businesses. She's got a great tool, and like anytime I see her present, like my brain just explodes. She's so smart, and she's got a great team behind her. So I would definitely say Cindy.
Okay. If I needed to quickly rank for a search term in Maps, let's say I'm an attorney and I decide I want to go after car accident lawyer as a keyword, what's the one thing that I could do to make the biggest impact to helping to rank for that one search term in Google?
Spam your name.
Nice.
Obviously, it's against guidelines, but it works. Like if truly that's what you should do is add
We've
that
we've
keyword to your
actually had to
name.
have a few of our clients change their DBA specifically because of that challenge. I hope somebody at Google My Business there will
They
watch
know.
this later
Yeah.
and fix that loophole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. What's one thing that drives you absolutely nuts that people do in local search that they think is benefiting them?
Um, I think the service for a service area business, when you put your service areas in Google, they
Mm,
don't impact your ranking whatsoever. All they do is draw a polygon on the map. So I think a lot of people pay a lot more attention to your service areas in GMB and they don't do anything for you.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. What's one thing that a client has done that drove you absolutely nuts as it related to their local search?
I think whenever someone launches new local pages and does not link them to their GMB profiles for like a
Oh
very long
man.
time, and they
And it's
just
still
keep
leading to the homepage?
the
Yeah,
domain on there, it's a big loss, a big miss. And also, if you update the website in GMB, it triggers a crawl. So it's definitely beneficial to update those links in GMB for your new local pages.
very cool. And if somebody wanted to become an expert in local search, I think we already mentioned Local U is a good resource for that. But what
Yes.
other resources might somebody who hasn't really gotten that deep into local SEO but wants to be an expert like you, what suggestions do you have for them?
So there's a lot of forums. So Local U has a forum, and then there's the Local
Local
Search
search
Forum.
forum.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
run by Joy Hawkins and Sterling Sky. There's just so
we're
much
in there.
knowledge sharing. Yeah. That goes on. And then there's a bunch of other kind of groups and forums. So if you go there, then you connect with everyone on Twitter, everyone's sharing links, and everyone's open to sharing. So I definitely say look at some of the local search forums that are out there.
Awesome. I love that dynamic about our industry. Any other industry, they're so competitive and secretive. And for us, we're so into helping each other. We realize every business needs search. There's plenty of business out there. We can support each other and help each other. And I don't know. I really love that about our community.
Yeah, we're
Well,
fortunate for that. Yeah.
Crystal, this has been amazing. What are some ways that somebody could get a hold of you, or how would you like them to find you or follow you online?
I would say the easiest is probably Twitter. It's at Krystal_Taing. Always feel free to connect, DM. I'll always respond. So definitely open to connecting.
Sweet. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing today. And I know we came up with a couple other podcast ideas, so there might be
Yes.
something again in the future. But thanks for being on our show. And guys, thanks for listening. And we'll see you on the next episode.